for both of you guys, if you don't mind, what do y'all remember about the end of the season last year down in Gainesville? What sticks with you?
Uh, it was heartbreaking, and going back in there, just gonna put a chip on our shoulder.
That chip will definitely be there. We all remember. We've got new guys, obviously. So it is a new season, but that memory is in the back of our heads, and that does create a chip on our shoulder. And we're ready to go down there and compete.
Eli, when you watched the tape back from last Friday, what did you see from your start? Was there anything you kind of noticed that was off a little bit? Just can you kind of take me through your last week, please?
Yeah, it's kind of felt a little off. Watched a lot of video and talked a lot with Coach Williams, but at the end of the day, it's the game of baseball, right? It's really hard to go out there week after week and try and be like lights out every outing. So it's one of those things where it's like put it behind me, learn from it, and do better this week.
For either of you guys, being at that series last year, do you feel like this weekend's going to have that same type of super regional feel, or is it just like another weekend in the SEC?
I feel like it's going to be like, it's like our almost rival for because we play in the next 5 years, something like that, and I feel like it's going to be really competitive and really the atmosphere is great there. So they have their past couple SEC series at home have been outstanding crowds, and we expect a lot of people there. A lot of people from my hometown will be there too, cheering on the Gamecocks. So
yeah, it definitely is. It does have that rivalry feel now, especially for my class. My freshman and sophomore year, they ended our season both years. So we definitely remember that, and it is a big series for us for many reasons. But we aren't going to treat it any differently. We're going to go out there and play baseball to the best of our ability.
For both of you guys, what's the key to changing the fortune on Friday night or the series opener?
Just play our hardest, play how we played last night, and just compete with each other and play together. And we've been winning those close games, like I said in the last interview, and it's just great to see this. That we just need to keep building on that, and anything can happen on a Friday night in the SEC.
That's right.
Ethan, I think at the end of last year, with that Gainesville Super Regional, you kind of talked about how you and Cole are going to need to step up and be the leaders this year, and whoever wants to join y'all can do so. How do you feel like you've done throughout the season as a leader, and what does it mean for you when the young guys look up to you as the vet in the room?
It feels great. I'm not a vet yet, but I feel like I've had enough experience playing. I've played almost 100 games now, and I feel like everybody that is younger than me is looking up to me, and they understand, they trust my word, and trust is everything, and they trust me and Cole to handle the offense, and they trust Eli and Becker to handle the pitching, and they trust their word, and that's all we need in the locker room.
Eli, you're obviously probably the leader of the pitching staff. What did you notice about Connor McCreary last night, and how happy were you for him?
Man, that's really good to see. He's a guy ever since he got here last year. He puts his head down and he gets his work done. He's one of the hardest workers on the staff, and everybody sees it. So it's when guys like that go out there and succeed, you get really, really happy for them.
Ethan, I know that folks don't like to talk about it because it adds pressure, but you guys are over halfway through the season now, and way off of your typical batting average overall when you have guys at runners in scoring position. How do y'all go about changing that? Is that something that has kind of gotten into the back of y'all's heads? How do you release that?
So at the beginning of the season, I think is when we really struggled, and I feel like that was in the back of our heads. But now we kind of released that pressure, and we've been hitting a little bit better recently. But last night we had faced an outstanding pitching staff, and they made pitches, and you just gotta sometimes tip your cap, and hitting with runners in scoring position is a lot of pressure on a lot of people, and I feel like it's just we gotta get better. That's obvious, but we're working as hard as we can. We're doing everything we can just to get better, and it will get better because that's just what baseball is.
Kingston was talking about how baseball is all about consistency, and then it's also case by case. Like each player kind of has to evaluate themselves when they're finding that inconsistency. What are y'all's individual processes, whether that's mental or physical, to be able to get out of like a sluggish performance?
Yeah, as far as me, it's a little bit easier for me as the week goes on. You know, as a starting pitcher, you've got your weekly routine. You know what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, as a reliever, it's a little bit harder. You don't know when you're going to pitch, but for me, it's you know, you get all your heavy workload stuff done early in the week and get kind of mentally prepared towards the end of the week. Get to know a little bit more about who you're facing and how that lineup looks and be mentally prepared for it.
And like as for me, I kind of just I'm more on the mental side. You know, I don't do as much as the pitchers do, but you know, I just try to, you know, just not talk about it as much. When I don't talk about it as much, it just, you know, doesn't consume me. But when I talk about it, it just keeps consuming me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm an 0 for 10 in this 0 for 10 streak. So I try to preach to that guys in the locker room, you know, don't talk about it as much. Just, you know, just go out there and just play your game. You're going to get yourself out of it. And, you know, I told Talmadge that a couple weeks ago, and, you know, he's been hitting exceptionally well lately. So, you know, it's just good to see that they're listening to my advice.
For either of you, Mark was talking last night about how Roman Kimball took a weekend off, took a reset. It's been better mentally the last couple of weeks. Have you noticed a difference with him in the clubhouse and practices, anything like that?
Yeah, I have a lot, and he's bringing great energy. You know, even on the bench, he's a great teammate, and just, you know, not I wouldn't say not caring much about pitching, but he cares more about the team and invested himself into the team rather than investing just in his, you know, personal performance, and that has paid off exceptionally well with his, you know, obviously his wiffle ball fastball.
Yeah, he is doing a lot better though. You know, he's another one of those guys just like McCreary. He gets his work done just as good as anybody else. And, you know, he is just fresh off of surgery. This is his first season back, so I think a lot of people forget that, and I think a lot of people put very high expectations on him, and just know that kid is working his butt off every day.
Last year, Ethan, we all talked about, you know, you going back to Florida, being a Florida native, and that was a big storyline about, you know, is it personal for you? Having that under your belt now, is it still personal, or is it kind of, I'm used to this now?
I'm kind of used to it. You just got to treat it as like an everyday SEC series or every weekend SEC series, and I can't really like treat it as like I'm going back home. But, you know, I am going back home, and I'm really excited to play, you know, back in my home state.
Anything else for guys?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.